Giving honor to whom honor is due, I want to appreciate our founder and chairman board of regents there, Dr. David Oyedepo, as well as every dignitaries present in this conference today. It's my honor to be sharing this wonderful day with you all, and I look forward to such an exciting time, sharing some very interesting thoughts around this amazing topic that's been selected by the conference committee. I believe very strongly in the power of artificial intelligence and how it can change our world. I believe strongly in the potential itself of technology as a whole, and I'm super stoked to be a presenter in today's program. I listened very carefully to that opening remark that focused on the recap of yesterday's initial sessions, and I must say that is very close to some of the thoughts or summaries that I'll be looking at today. The continent of Africa has so much potential. We have huge potential, as a matter of fact. The question, however, is, are we able to realize that potential with our current strategy and the way we're driving some of the things we are driving? So today I will be sharing, as I've been introduced, my name is Olusola Amusan. I'm founder and CEO at Coven Works, and I lead a team of highly intelligent minds who are helping organizations to drive the promise of artificial intelligence across various organizations. In a moment, I'm going to have my slide up to basically share with you today artificial intelligence, machine learning, and smart cities. I have had the privilege of working really closely with different organizations who are on the cutting edge of driving innovation across the continent of Africa. For more than 5 years, as my citation earlier said, I led the philanthropist team at Microsoft. And the work there is really what has led me to some of the things I do today. My work was to work with universities across Nigeria and in sub-Saharan Africa to drive the skills narrative and prepare our young people for the future of work. And that work I did so passionately well, working also with this great institution, Covenant University. Would just let it go. Anytime you hear about artificial intelligence, you hear it pops up and you want to learn more about the initiative that is being talked about. But today I will be relating artificial intelligence and machine learning with smart cities, and how Africans and Africa can indeed position for the potential transformation that this can bring. In my day job, I help companies around the world to adopt top cloud and AI solutions from the leading providers like Amazon, Google, IBM, and other organizations who are strongly applying artificial intelligence. So I get to see where countries are leading, and how institutions are positioning themselves to apply artificial intelligence. So since today isn't really so much about what is AI kind of class, it's basically a time to reflect on where we are as a country, where we are as a people. The mission at Covenworks, which company I run, is to build tomorrow's workforce. We strongly believe that tomorrow's workforce is hinged on helping our citizens to become digital natives and helping members of our institutions to become digital natives who not only understand the concept of digital, but are applying it to every facet of human endeavor. I know for a fact, because I've received a delegation of Covenant University at Microsoft while I was at Microsoft, that this is an institution that is committed to helping its students and entirely its community to become fully digital, and that drives this with its resources, with its time, and with its attention. But Covenant isn't only a beacon of hope to its people, it's a beacon of hope to the continent of Africa and to the world. And that's why I think this conference is important, because many more people outside the university community are participating in what not only has become a leading, conversation starter in the space, but also something that we feel can challenge stakeholders, government organizations, individuals, and other players in the field. Now, when we talk about smart cities, building tomorrow's cities, the concept, came along when, Amsterdam started working on making sure that every infrastructure or every sector of its economy and city life is driven by digital. And several other cities around the world, hundreds of them as a matter of fact, have made this new commitment to make sure that their cities are smarter. And when we call a city smart, what we're trying to say is that it is built for efficiency across its industry, security, retail, society, healthcare, home, and energy. It is built on the backbone, even its mobility is built on the backbone of a strong, solid digital infrastructure. And its efficiency can be seen from the way all of them interoperate and interconnect. So we have a duty as people of African descent to be able to put our countries on the map, to put our communities on the map, of those countries that have made a commitment towards building smart city solutions, where industry is driven by digital, security is driven by digital, retail is driven by digital, society is driven by digital. There's an internet infrastructure that is driving our healthcare. We have enough infrastructure to drive our home, our energy solutions, and our mobility. So you wake up in the morning and you can teleconference with your doctor, not just one doctor, but it is a common experience of all people in that country. So it's not just the rich, not just the tech savvy, but a common experience of the common citizen, that they can teleconference with their doctor and they wear a wearable solution that can check their heart rate in the morning and send a report to their doctor. They can hail a ride or check the schedule for the city's bus right on the city's own mobile app. They can monitor their energy usage right on their mobile devices or on a panel on the wall. They can get to work using the fastest route possible without being stuck in traffic for several hours on Third Mainland Bridge. Every fabric of society is driven by this digital integration that enables individuals to live a more productive life. Now, for smart cities to be possible, the underlying infrastructure is usually internet connectivity. And this internet connectivity allows things, people, entities to communicate together in a web that we now refer to as the Internet of Things. Today, that Internet of Things is secured by segments of the field like cybersecurity, enhanced by amazing algorithms that are powered by artificial intelligence. So whether it's facial recognition at an airport to check you in faster, super improved X-ray scans to be sure that your bags do not contain things that the government or anybody doesn't want you to carry, to helping to chart a faster course for finding the cure for diseases or combating fake news. All of these items are driven by the core of a technology that automates our today and preserves our tomorrow, called artificial intelligence. Now, a few years ago, the country of China set out with a vision that the internet, cloud computing, large data, which most other people refer to as big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, and so on will drive the evolution of everything. This is China's opinion, that digital network and intelligence services will be everywhere. And they made this not just their obsessive mission. They have challenged countries like the United States with this vision of theirs, transforming hundreds of their cities into smart cities within only a few years leading on to the past decade. Now, like China, even though they're not the role model for several things, like China, countries like Nigeria and indeed several countries of Africa need to set a vision that is not only recognizable, but that is well documented about how they will drive the future of work, smart cities using the internet, cloud computing, big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, and so on. For us to be able to get onto this point, we must build necessary capacity to be able to drive our inventions and to be able to deliver the promise of technology to our people. Deloitte, the company Deloitte, created a smart city framework that basically connects the very, very strongest pillars. So I'll call this the pillars of a smart city. And those pillars are the economy, mobility, security, education, environment, and living. You can put healthcare inside living as well. Now, if all of these sectors of the economy, at least majority of them, are not driven by technology, if they are not driven by artificial intelligence, then we can't call our cities a smart city. If our mobility is not driven by data, if our economy is not driven by big data, if we can essentially predict how our overdependence on oil is not going to lead us to a great point with empirical facts and data, if we cannot reduce our carbon emission by being able to predict which part of town or discover which part of town emits the highest, like in some states in India, in the country of India, they're able to use artificial intelligence to determine which part of the city there are more emissions on which day of the week, and so can recommend to people in that part of town whether or not to go out with their automobiles for that day. We must be concerned about our living conditions and how we can improve our health care using technology and artificial intelligence. How can we get technology? How can we use technology to get health care to those who are not already covered, to areas in our country where there are no primary health care centers? How can we use the proliferation of mobile telephony and mobile technology to be able to deliver health care to the last mile? How can we make sure that these are all questions we all need to answer, not just as educationists, but as policymakers, entrepreneurs, and government decision makers. How can we transform security? By doing more surveillance that is guided on the policy that controls that controls the services for the benefit of all rather than just a few, making sure that our privacy is not lost, but that our security is ensured. How can we transform mobility in our cities using technology to map hotspots, to map places with higher demand, and to be able to determine the future of our populations and the infrastructure that is needed to serve them? All of this must be done with inclusion in mind, noting that 1 billion, 1 out of every 7 person you know or see around is living with one physical disability or the other, and that women are still very, very disenfranchised and marginalized in our societies. All of this must be done with inclusion in mind. They must be developed and built with transparency in mind, and they must be built with engagement in mind, and we must drive collaboration as we move forward. We must determine who are the constituents. What domains do we want to begin with first as tests, scenarios, and pilots? What is the necessary infrastructure that will drive this? And what are our goals for the medium, for the short, for the medium, and for the long term? When we think about the energy of our cities today, or what powers our community, what kind of energy, how much of fossil fuels is being burnt? And I think it's not too early to have these conversations. A few years ago, I stood on the street of Berlin, looking up at the skyscrapers with amazement. And a friend of mine who were attending a major conference together tapped me on the shoulders and asked me why I was appearing so depressed walking, in this beautiful Asian city. And I answered him, my concern is how long it would take my country to build such infrastructure like that of Berlin. And then he answered me and asked me this very important question that has driven my work ever since. Are you sure you want your country to be built like Germany? Or do you want to take some of the lessons and be able to build a better future? I believe strongly that Africa has an opportunity to build correctly from the ground up, and that this is the time to embrace smart city energy solutions that will be able to drive down the use of dirty fuels and be able to create a clean, sustainable future. And it's time to challenge every institution, organization attending this conference today to ask, how are you cutting down your carbon footprints? How are you reducing your carbon footprints? And what are you doing to be able to utilize clean energy? Now, for artificial intelligence, it's not such a new subject. And I like to tell people this. The term machine learning was first discussed, I think, about 1959 or thereabouts. So the concepts of artificial intelligence have been existing for several decades. Now, what is new is that we have new compute power to be able to achieve this. I remember when mobile phones first came to Nigeria. As a matter of fact, I would start that my first, experience at using a computer, I think, was a computer whose hard disk, the entire hard disk was 2 gigabytes, and the RAM was about maybe 128 MB. Now, today, looking back in retrospect, and I'm sure anybody on this in this conference today, we also try to remember what their first computer was. But over the past decade, we've seen a massive increase in memory, compute, and storage. And today, we have mobile phones that are far better than our first computers. We use mobile phones with 4 gigabytes of RAM, higher compute power. Some of us have computers with 16 gigabytes of RAM. And today, we have cloud services that enable us to process petabytes of data in just a few minutes. We have access to strong compute power and the power of distributed computing, including huge solution data centers located around the world, and even highly challenging theories like the recently attempted undersea data centers by Microsoft. Artificial intelligence and its concepts are not new. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning, though interchangeably applied, actually do represent different subsets of the same field. New methods in deep learning have allowed us to identify patterns in treating diseases, identifying benign and malignant tumors, and also being able to generate deep fake videos to demonstrate that there is a new era in generative adversarial networks and the creation of images and motion pictures. The whole concept of artificial intelligence and the smart city dreams that I have presented earlier are actually going to be enabled by the cloud. They will be driven by the cloud. And this cloud is, allow me to say, it's a bunch of data centers located everywhere else around the world. My challenge, however, is that my country and yours and our continent hasn't so much paid attention to creating indigenous solutions, indigenous cloud services, indigenous data centers that are driven by us. This is important because the warfare of the future is not going to be with guns and arms and bombs and tanks. It will be with data. The warfare of the future, whether it's in creating competitive advantage for your country or in driving essential value, for your own people, it will be driven by who owns the cloud we use. Everywhere today, we encourage our young people, teaching them communications technology, programming languages, and we have even a new proliferation of code camps for kids across the country. I'm certain that Covenant University runs quite a good number of boot camps and hackathons through its innovation center every year. As we drive all of these initiatives, it's imperative that we know that the backbone of the internet is still provided by many Western countries who we are privileged today to have as allies, but we might not have as friends tomorrow. What will we do to launch our own satellites into space and provide connectivity without depending on these unicorn companies around the world, who obviously have their own vision of how Africa must be perceived, developed, cultivated, and restricted? It is important, gentlemen and ladies, that we create our own opportunities to build our data centers, provide the power, the security, and the internet infrastructure that will connect our people to these services, such that we're able to innovate within our own countries without the limits of subscription, without the limit of bandwidth, and we can make very strong commitments. I'll give you a very simple example. My company has benefited from cloud services donated by Microsoft, Google, and Amazon Web Services. These donations are, however, limited. Imagine an indigenous cloud company allows us to be able to use its distributed computing to create limitless kind of innovation without measuring it in thousands of dollars. Because one of the setbacks, as maybe one of my friends and co-presenters might have said yesterday, one of the critical setbacks is the fact that we still have to measure internet in terms of bundles on our continent. And this is a strong restriction to innovation of any kind. Training and developing artificial intelligence models, including the deployment of the same, would require several hours of compute, storage, and other computer resources. Network resources are not left out. And these resources require consistent availability. Now, if we as a people would have to depend on the West for this type of critical resource, we are not indeed protecting our shores and securing our space under the sun the way we need to. And this brings me very quickly to the issue of ethics, because really there is no cloud anywhere. It's just someone else's computer. It's just someone else's data center, and they can determine how exactly this is administered. Now, early AI adopters who are focusing on turning their own cities into smart cities in some countries are most likely to use AI to create very strong competitive advantage. The founder and CEO of Amazon, Mr. Jeff Bezos, became the first in recent modern history to be $200 billion rich. These entrepreneurs bring massive GDP per capita contributions to their individual countries. And they have used artificial intelligence and other cutting-edge technology to be able to transform how a company like Amazon recommends products to its clients and manages its entire e-commerce infrastructure, doubling their profits year on year. Some of these companies, when put together, within a year, actually make more money than all of the export revenue of oil that the country of Nigeria makes annually. So there are a number of countries, and this chart here, which basically is from Deloitte Insights, demonstrates to us some of the countries that have put the most investment in artificial intelligence and are adopting it in governance, education, healthcare, and indeed every spectrum or fiber of their society. From China to Germany to the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, France, and Australia. This represents the top 7 companies who are in, or countries, I meant to say, I beg your pardon, who are early adopters for artificial intelligence. And they're making massive investments to either catch up and keep on par with the rest of their, in the community of nations, or they are making massive leapfrogs by investing in local players or putting a huge part of their military budget on the development of artificial intelligence to prepare themselves for future competitive advantage and indeed even warfare. There are conversations today about algorithmic bias because we do not have enough players. I am championing some work around artificial intelligence for Black people and how several people who have driven the concept of AI initially haven't indeed considered the importance of having data that is universal enough. But I don't blame them so much. I feel that when we neglect our duty to provide as much data or to be able to lead the development of new artificial intelligence systems or smart city solutions, we leave ourselves on the consuming end of things and we put our faith in the hands of other people. And as much as globally, because of regulation, all these people need to care, as initially, they actually thought they could care less. Today, there are conversations about the fact that autonomous vehicles do not recognize Black people and that computer vision APIs that profile people have wrongly accosted people just because they are Black. Today, there are countries around the world with malicious intent to weaponize artificial intelligence as a new type of colonization. My concern is to ask us the question, what is the strategy of our nation? What is the strategy of our people? What is our strategy as institutions to be at the forefront of creating algorithmic balance in this new emerging field called artificial intelligence? It's indeed a very important question. As I round up this morning, some of the interesting applications that we should begin to take a look at range from e-commerce to content generation and tailoring of content, optimizing advertisement, mining data for recommendation systems that can drive economic prosperity, creating our own cloud for social good, combating fake news, and accelerating the search for disease cure. I believe some of these represent very critical pathways that can put our countries and indeed our development centers at the forefront. We must make the right connections. Artificial intelligence itself is about taxonomies and ontologies. It's about making those critical connections. We must decide that we're not trying to catch up with a future where we want to overcome the robots, a future where we want to take over, a future where we want to compete with the robots. It should be a future where we want to make the necessary connections and actually collaborate with artificial intelligence, collaborate with robots, and create a future where we can be more human, where we allow machines to do some of the more routine things that we spend our time doing today. So that things that make us human, like love, empathy, faith, are things that we can focus on and drive, while other things that are mundane can be done by the machines that we've created using our creative potential. We must think really deeply about our education and the way it's been presented today. We must think about our data. We must set our own vision, and we must manage our own cloud. The race for AI domination is driven still by many of these rich unicorns, huge companies across the world. When will universities begin to acquire artificial intelligence startups, or at least partner with them in their research and development communities? As you can see, even though this data only dates as recent as 2017, Google continues to be one of those organizations that is leading the acquisitions of artificial intelligence startups. And when you see these efforts, what you actually see is a commitment to continue to drive innovation within that organization. So as you can see here, I don't see any company here owned by any Nigerian or any African, that is leading the race for AI domination. What this essentially means is that one more time, we're about to get ready for colonization. And these choices will be made by organizations who we can't do without their services. We use these services every single day we wake up. You either have an iPhone, an iPad, you have to search something on Google, you have a Facebook account, you use Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel, and you probably ordered something on Amazon in the past week. These top companies are really leading the race, and while it is remarkable, it calls for actually some thought and some reflection from us as a people. For a better future, organizations like Cognizant Center for the Future of Work have designed this visualization that stemmed out of a research that they conducted. Businesses are requiring overhauling of our learning and development practices, increase in investment in reskilling our workforces, providing more specialized trainings on emerging digital technologies. In the past year alone, I've worked with top companies, even in Nigeria, who are trying to reskill their entire workforce. This is extremely important for readiness for the future of work. Mapping tasks for each job that needs to be done and enhanced by emerging digital technologies, deciding what should be done by humans within the organization today and what should be done by machines, upgrading the technology infrastructure to accelerate the time to learn, focusing on personalized learning. I am very keen about those last 2 points. How can we reduce our 5-year degrees into 1-year programs and without losing the value of education? How can we reduce time to learn? Can people indeed have 6-month degree programs? How exactly will this happen, and what will be the future of learning in terms of time to learn? Leveraging leadership to create culture of learning and making people responsible for self-learning. And in our higher education institutions, we have to overhaul our teaching methods and approaches. We need to create new learning pathways that will help our organizations to drive innovation. We need to develop in-depth courses around robotics, interactive design, artificial intelligence, cognitive, augmented, and virtual reality. We have to provide personalized collaborative learning environments, and we have to train students for real STEM business roles and improve the quality of career advice. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's been my singular honor to present this to you today, and I hope that some of the thoughts here will continue to drive the conversations for the rest of the conference. Once again, I want to thank the organizers for inviting me, and special thanks to Dr. David Oyedepo for the amazing work that he has been doing in driving the narrative around transforming Africa using the power of faith and true education. Once again, I appreciate you, and I say thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amusan. We appreciate your contribution to our knowledge base this morning, and we look forward to nations of Africa making a detour from the current route and starting to chart a new course towards the emancipation of the black man.